Your son, he's gone.
He was weak and foolish, like his father.
So I destroyed him.
Show me the one whose safety deemed such destruction. You must reunite it with its own kind.
Where?
This you must determine. The songs of eons past tell of battles between Mandalore the Great and an order of sorcerers called Jedi.
You expect me to search the galaxy and deliver this creature to a race of enemy sorcerers?
This is the way.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Weak and Foolish Movie Podcast. My name is Mike Tang, and with me is
Joe Bang.
Joining us for this episode is our friend and fellow Star Wars nerd, Albert Liu.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me. It's an honor.
All right. Yeah, in this episode, we're going to be discussing Season 2 of the Disney Plus Star Wars show, The Mandalorian. And I can't think of two better people to be discussing The Mandalorian with. I'm more of a recent Star Wars fan. I didn't truly love the saga until The Force Awakens. I know that's like blasphemy for some people. But, you know, Job and Albert, they've lived and breathed Star Wars since they were kids. They have an encyclopedic knowledge of the entire franchise. They've seen the animated shows multiple times. They've read the comics. They've read the books. They know the expanded universe before Disney non-canonized it. So these guys, they know Star Wars. All right. So for those of you tuning in for the first time, each of our podcast episodes begins with a non-spoiler section where we describe our thoughts without revealing any specific plot details. This section is then followed by a spoiler discussion where we delve into all aspects of the film or show. Just to lay out some ground rules, I think all the Star Wars movies are going to be fair game, and we can talk spoilers for episodes 1 through 9, for Solo, for Rogue One, freely, right? Because I'm assuming everyone listening to this has some familiarity with Star Wars and have seen all the movies. But in our spoiler discussion, we will be spoiling Clone Wars and Rebels. So if you haven't seen those shows yet, check those out because The Mandalorian Season 2 pretty much made those shows required viewing for everybody. All right, so for our non-spoiler discussion, Albert, I would love to hear your thoughts on the entire season of Mandalorian, Season 2.
It's I've had this talk with you before about how it's the perfect encapsulation of everything Star Wars. The good in the past, the bad, the weird, and it sort of knows how to fit all those things from the prequel, sequel, and original trilogies that I think has made people who are fans of all those trilogies love The Mandalorian in a way that's not divisive. I think my other thoughts on it is whether Star Wars is better as a long-form type of storytelling versus the movies that Disney's tried so hard to push on us recently. But other than that, I just thought The Mandalorian was just incredible storytelling for Star Wars fans and also incredible storytelling for non-fans as well. I forgot to mention this in the beginning, but other than including all fans with different references, it has a story that I think even non-fans can follow about parenthood and the friendships. So it makes me really, really excited to see what the future of Star Wars is in television and on Disney Plus.
Awesome. Yeah, I definitely want to know more specifics, I guess, where you think it was like good Star Wars, where you think it was like bad Star Wars, but in the spoiler section. Joe, what are your non-spoiler thoughts on Mandalorian Season 2?
Yeah. First of all, I want to just say I could never, ever have imagined seeing live action Star Wars on TV like when I was 7. After seeing those movies and the originals and then the prequels later in the theaters, I thought, Star Wars will always live on in this little small pocket of my childhood. And it would just kind of be something to revisit over the years, and it'll always be pleasant and nostalgic. But you know what? Guess what, guys? We're never growing up. Star Wars is here to stay. We don't have to go back to our childhood. It's just here forever. And if Disney keeps it up, it'll be here long after we're gone, which is kind of a crazy thing to think about. So that's made me think a lot about what these stories mean to us. Star Wars is just a parable for life. There's good, there's evil, there's life and death, light and dark. I've watched and read these stories from when I was 7 to when I was 27, and probably when I'm 37. It's about generations, parenthood, growth, failure, and so much of Star Wars is about real life, and I think that's why it endures. Which leads us to The Mandalorian, right? Mandalorian is the first foray into kind of extending the lifespan of this franchise. It's like the first live action property outside of the movies. And I thought season 1 was fantastic. I really loved it. I actually thought it was perfect because it matched the DNA of what Star Wars began its life as, which is kind of a tribute to the Flash Gordon weekend serials where you just kind of drop in on a story and then you finish up. And so Mandalorian kind of like evoked that bygone era where life was simpler and it was about a person going through adventures with, and in this case with his little green son. That being said, I was obviously hoping for so much more in season 2, and I just feel like it truly delivered. You could really argue that it still was kind of an adventure of the week in some instances. In this case, character of the week appearances, kind of cameo of the week appearances. And in that way, it's a lot like another Star Wars show, Rebels, season 2. But I think by the end, we really got a well put together story. It makes you really appreciate what the characters mean. I did feel a bit of the sense that this universe was getting small. It definitely felt at times like we were getting really close to the hey, you know who this is, right? And if you don't, too bad kind of feel. But I think they did a great job of balancing that. I think that in the end, the fans got what they wanted, and I think it still was accessible to those who are casual and just dropping in. And I think it was a great balance. So great props to Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni, all the directors for putting it all together nicely. I think we got such a great season, and I can't wait to dive into like the spoilers when we're out of this non-spoiler section. But what did you think, Mike?
For me, like I mentioned before, I'm more of a newer Star Wars fan. Like, again, Force Awakens came out in 2015, so I've really only been a fan of Star Wars for 5 years now. And so I think when I was watching The Mandalorian, season 1 and 2, I was watching it as more of like a fan of film and television. And I feel like we live in the golden age of television where shows have blurred the lines between movies and TV, right? I'm talking about Game of Thrones, Breaking Bad, House of Cards, Stranger Things, Barry, Succession. This era of TV has transformed the medium into long-form storytelling, right? Now shows can play more than 10... They're now more like 10-hour movies with a continuous story that builds over the course of every episode. And we're getting deeper characters and more fleshed out world building as a result. So that's what I love about TV in the past 10 years and how far TV has come. And Job, you mentioned you got like Flash Gordon, like conflict of the week type vibes, right, from The Mandalorian. That's kind of like what you accepted. For me, that's actually what disappointed me about season 1 of Mandalorian, because it felt like a show from a different era of television. It almost felt like, to me, a step backwards in terms of storytelling, especially how far TV has come. And the entire middle section of season 1, it was about like 4 episodes. There was a new adventure of the week, one-off type storytelling. Nothing in those episodes really advanced the overall story. All right, we maybe learned a few things about the characters, or we were introduced to new characters, but I came out feeling a little bit frustrated because that's not actually what I wanted in a Star Wars TV show. And I know it's inspired. Star Wars in itself is inspired by those serialized storytellings from the past. But to me, Star Wars is it's more than that, right? It's episodes 1 through 9, and then we have they all contribute to the bigger story. But all my feelings about Mandalorian and its shortcomings, all of that changed with season 2. Season 2 is the opposite of season 1. I know you mentioned every week there's a character that they're placing into each episode, and it's about that character. But I felt like every episode at least offered us something exciting, and it felt like what we were watching mattered. Even though it advanced the story just a little bit, I think that was still better than what was happening in season 1, which was like just random stuff happening in each episode that didn't really seem connected until maybe the very end. I think season 2 retroactively made season 1 better because it actually reuses some of the characters and conflicts we were introduced to in season 1. I think the biggest standout for season 2 is how it connects to Clone Wars and Rebels, the animated Star Wars series. And those were significant shows in how they fleshed out the worlds and characters of the prequel and original trilogies, right? They introduced some of the greatest Star Wars characters and storylines. The very concept of Mandalore and Mandalorians actually stem from Clone Wars and is built upon in Rebels. Season 1 was pretty much for anyone who was mildly familiar with Star Wars, like they could enjoy it and they could have access to that show and the story. But season 2 requires a knowledge of Clone Wars and Rebels to have the fullest appreciation of it. Like, you could watch season 2 and still enjoy it, but I think for those of us who've seen Clone Wars and Rebels, like it was so much more rewarding having that extra knowledge and backstory. Another standout about, I think, season 2 is how it has seeds that seem to lead into the sequel trilogy. So it has a foot in Clone Wars and Rebels, but it also seems to be leading into the sequel trilogy, because we know this takes place between Return of the Jedi, Episode 6, and The Force Awakens, Episode 7. So we're now seeing how this show might possibly explain some of the details that we wanted but didn't get in the sequel trilogy. So major kudos for Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau for upping the storytelling in this season and to make its mark in the Star Wars universe. I think the season 2 finale itself, right? Season 2, episode 8. I mean, we can say a lot more about that one episode, but that one episode delivered for me in every possible way what I want from Star Wars. It was just a dream come true of an episode, and it immediately resolved all the issues that I had in The Mandalorian with just 48 minutes. Like, every single thing about that episode, every moment was just gold. So overall, I had a much better time in season 2, and I have really high hopes to where it leads. I think, like what you guys mentioned, I feel like there's so much potential for where this can go. It's definitely something that I didn't feel with season 1. All right. Yeah. Do you guys have, any other thoughts that you guys, non-spoiler thoughts that you want to offer before we jump into spoilers?
A few. I know I had a pretty weak introduction there. This is my first podcast, by the way, to listeners. I actually wasn't that disappointed with Mandalorian season 1. I felt like Star Wars was always, there was always a bit of a lone gunslinger feel to it when you talk about characters like Han Solo. So it was kind of, I know people had problems with this, but I didn't mind the Adventure of the Week too much because I felt like they were doing a Clint Eastwood movie or Shane, where this hero just walks into a town, or in this case, a planet, and deals with the problems, and then he just goes because he has something else going on. And I think you're right in the sense that season 2 does improve upon season 1. It takes everything that it makes sure that nothing in season 1 really went to waste. It managed to bring back characters and elevate them. So those were sort of my thoughts on season 1 in relation to season 2. You made an interesting comment about how season 2 makes season 1 better, but I think something I've been hearing a lot about from Star Wars fans is, a bigger question about whether it made everything else in Star Wars better.
Wow.
From the prequels to the sequel trilogy. And that kind of goes back to my earlier point in which I said what I was really impressed about season 2 is there were nods and references to all those trilogies that made sure that if you were a fan of the prequels, the original trilogy, and the sequel trilogy, you weren't left out. There was something for you to enjoy.
Yeah, I mean, it's doing a lot of heavy lifting, right? Like it's the first live action series, so it kind of needs to, and I think it's done a great job. What's really impressive about Mandalorian as a show so far is that it's accessible, I think, to casual viewers, and it's also great for the deep dive fans as well. So, I mean, I think we're repeating ourselves at this point. It's great. Watch it if you haven't.
I just gotta say though, like, I mean, yeah, if you're a casual fan who hasn't seen Clone Wars and Rebels, there's a certain type of reaction that fans have when you know more about the story and what they're doing. That I feel like you're just missing part of the excitement that I think we're feeling because we've seen those shows. What I am happy about is actually because of the Mandalorian season 2, more and more people are going and revisiting or going back and watching those shows that they missed.
Mm-hmm.
So I am glad that they're discovering those shows, and I'm pretty sure they're going to come out of Clone Wars and Rebels having a better appreciation for the prequels because those films, like, as much as the prequels were bashed to death for like years, you don't hear, I don't feel like I hear as many prequel haters now as before, and I think it's because of Clone Wars and Rebels and what it did for the fandom.
Yeah.
When people start quoting the prequels on Reddit for fun as often as they do the original trilogy, it's struck a chord with the generation that grew up with it. I just remember at the time I saw the prequels, I remember thinking none of this is quotable, and now it's quotable. And a lot of it is, like you said, due to Rebels and Clone Wars, people gaining an appreciation for the prequels that way, because it does sort of flesh out things that the prequels didn't quite flesh out. And so people are able to see that whole prequel era in a different context. We never saw the heroic Anakin in the movies as much as we did in Clone Wars. And because we saw that in Clone Wars, people look at the entire character of Anakin Skywalker now as sort of this whiny dude played by Hayden Christensen, but as the guy who trained Ahsoka and did all these amazing things, you saw him as this brilliant warrior tactician that we heard about, but never really quite saw in the prequel movies.
One more note before we move on to spoilers. I'm so grateful that the Obi-Wan Kenobi show is happening, and it's going to be done. I have a feeling, they put really good people behind the camera. Deborah Chow, who directed some of the best episodes in Mandalorian season 1. She's going to do all the episodes in Obi-Wan Kenobi, and the fact that Hayden Christensen's coming back, I feel like it feels like a redemption for the prequels. Like, ultimately, it's going to make the prequels even better than before. So excited about that. All right, let's get into spoilers starting now.
No, you're still holding on! Let go!
Okay, so we're going to go through the biggest moments in season 2. That's kind of like how we're going to organize this discussion, because there's a lot of big moments. But before we actually do that, I want to talk about some of the criticism online about how season 2 is all about fan service and dropping well-known Star Wars characters into the show. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Do you guys think that that's a legitimate criticism? Do you defend the fan service? Like, what do you guys think as longtime Star Wars fans?
Like I said earlier, I definitely felt like it came close to going too far, but I don't think it did. And to me, actually, and we're in spoilers now, the biggest offender to me was the Ahsoka episode, amazingly enough. I thought it was awesome to see Ahsoka Tano in live action, having made her way over from animated, but I felt way too distracted and confused by what she was up to, why she was there. It took us away from the story a little bit to me. But I don't think it was bad enough for me to say fan service only. I do hope they break newer ground, though, in the coming seasons, and I think they will. But it did feel a little bit like, oh, by the way, here's this animated character. Oh, and here's this animated character. Oh, and in the finale, which we will get to, here's like the biggest whopper of all. But I thought it was okay. What did you guys think?
I agree with you. There were times when I was worried that we were losing focus of what the story is about, which is about the Mandalorian and the child, or Grogu now. It's still hard for me to say that. but they always manage to sort of bring it back. And I think being a Star Wars fan can be a fickle thing, or trying to please the fan base, I guess. If there wasn't enough fan service, you would hear people complain. And now that there is, people are still kind of complaining out there. So I think at best, what the creators have to worry about is just entertaining people instead of worrying about what the balance is. But I have to agree with you. There were times when I was a little worried about, Ahsoka and Luke, Bo-Katan, just sort of overshadowing this character's journey, which is what we're supposed to care about. But yeah, it's okay for me. I mean, I think it stuck to the landing regarding the main storyline. The entire season did, and we got some fun out of it. We saw characters that we loved.
Yeah,
no complaints.
Yeah, I agree too. Like, it did feel like it was losing focus. But I'd take that over what we got in season 1, which was I felt like it was even more aimless. At the very least, he was trying to take steps towards delivering Grogu to the Jedi, right? At least every episode, he was meeting someone who was redirecting him to where he needs to be. So I feel like it's like it kind of reminds me of like Mad Max Fury Road, where there's just literally one objective in that movie, and all they have to do is just drive out there into the desert, right, and get to that one place where there's like green. Like, that's literally the only objective. But along the way, there's all these exciting action sequences, cool characters that you meet along the way. I mean, that movie's heralded as like art, right? Like action art film. So like I feel like this is kind of like it's light. It was kind of light on the story, but I think also knowing what Disney has in store for us with like 10 other shows, like it seems like they're trying to branch out from Mandalorian, kind of like the CW, right? The CW started off with Arrow, and then they spun off into The Flash, and then spun off into Legend of Tomorrow, then Supergirl, then I lost track of the shows, but I feel like that's what Disney is kind of using the Mandalorian for, or at least in season 2, is to spin off and branch out into all these other shows. Which
that's a great point. Yeah.
All right, let's get to the major storylines in season 2. Bo-Katan and Mandalore. All right.
Here's where the fun begins.
Most of my
Yeah.
questions actually, most of my questions actually have to do. Well, actually, so Bo-Katan shows up in episode 3, and she's on. She seems like she's perpetually on the same mission, which is to reclaim Mandalore. In Clone Wars, that was her mission. In Rebels, that's her mission. And then here she is again in Mandalorian. Like her entire life is devoted to this one task. And it's like she claims Mandalore and then loses it. So remind me again, like what happened at the end of Rebels with Bo-Katan? Like, I mean, she had the Darksaber, and she was going to be the ruler of Mandalore. And then what happened? How did she end up in this point?
It seems like she lost the Darksaber at some point to Moff Gideon, which is why she's been chasing after him all this time. It seems like she just couldn't find him. It's like she's just been wandering around for years looking. We don't know when it happened. It sounds like it happened during the era of the Empire. But you're right. She's kind of been on this quest to restore Mandalore since even the Clone Wars, when she was in her early 20s maybe, and her sister Satine was the leader.
Right.
But it becomes like, I feel like we're gonna find out what Mandalore truly means in this show. We've been told a lot throughout history about what Mandalorians are. We were told they're bounty hunters like Boba Fett. Then we found out that they are a planet of pacifists who used to be warriors, and then we found out they have a warrior past. The warriors were trying to restore Mandalore to the old ways, but then the new Mandalorians kind of stuck around, the ones that could take their helmets off. And then we found out that Din Djarin, our main Mandalorian, is part of a cult that doesn't let them take helmets off. And then we found out they have all these rules. You have to win the Darksaber back through battle. But then we saw in Rebels that wasn't the case. Sabine just kind of handed the thing over to Bo-Katan. So we are just as lost as I think the characters even are about what Mandalorian truly means. What does it mean to be a Mandalorian? And I think we're going to find that out next. Now that, not to say this flippantly, now that Grogu's out of the picture, we're going to find out really what Mandalorian truly means.
Or what it could mean, right? They could go new directions.
True.
And we can expect Mandalore to look very different than the last time we saw it as well.
Yeah, I think there was a line in the
I think
last
we're going to see
episode.
Mandalore. Sorry.
Yeah, there's a line in the last episode that says that planet was turned to glass
Glass,
because of the Empire. So I wonder what that means.
They lasered it so much that it just turned into a giant mirror or something.
I mean, I know there's sand on that planet, but then there's also like snow, like there's mountainous snow areas that we saw. There's like that huge glass city in the clouds. It's like a really interesting planet. I really hope. I mean, the show is called The Mandalorian, right? So they have to deliver that aspect. Like, give us. There was an episode in Rebels where they talk about the first Mandalorian Jedi who I forgot his name, Vizsla. Tar Vizsla? Yeah, Tar Vizsla, first Mandalorian Jedi who crafted the Darksaber. I think they gave a little like 20-second history lesson. That was like so awesome, so cool.
First and only, yeah.
Yeah, the mythology in those 20 seconds, like I want more of that stuff. And I'm hoping that now that Din Djarin's with Bo-Katan and with her crew, I hope they bring that more. They really turn this into like a Game of Thrones type. Like Mandalore has that potential to be like a Game of Thrones type like mythology, really deep, like its own thing. I think it's just ripe, and I hope we finally get that. Like what you guys said. Like we've seen pieces of Mandalore that in Mandalorian like history that is pretty awesome, but we haven't had a fully fleshed out mythology and story behind it. So, yeah. So, question: do you think we're gonna get an invasion of Mandalore next season?
I think we're gonna get Bo-Katan constantly bothering Din for a fight, and he doesn't want to fight.
Do you think that's going to happen in the beginning, or is it going to happen throughout the show?
Oh, I can't tell anymore. Remember how we were talking about the episode where the Jedi, where Ahsoka comes out? I think some of us had speculated she might come out later in the episode, and she was there from like the first few seconds. So that made me think, oh, these guys aren't going to hold anything back. They might just end, the next season, this whole thing about Mandalore could be one episode, or it could be the entire 8. Who knows?
Man,
it's hard to tell.
I love where this season left us, because there's so many ways this could go, right? And I think that Bo-Katan is probably like wounded by the fact that she lost the Darksaber. She's probably wounded by the fact that she was handed the thing and didn't really earn the weapon. Like this random Mandalorian who worked for the Empire for a while and then became a rebel just handed her the most iconic weapon in Mandalorian culture, and she didn't earn it. I'm sure that maybe she got challenged to her leadership a lot because of that, and maybe now she's like, I should probably earn this back the right way. But then, Din Djarin owns it now, so what could happen? We don't know.
You brought up an interesting point about how her pride's been wounded so many times. There are times in season 2 when she's talking about the loss of Mandalore, and although it looks like she's criticizing other people, it almost feels like she's criticizing herself. In the last episode, when she tells Boba, and I forgot what the other Mandalorian's name was, to stop fighting. If we had showed this much effort or something like that, we wouldn't have lost Mandalore. You almost feel like she's talking to herself, but that could just be in the performance.
Do you think Bo-Katan and Din Djarin may delay the fight for the Darksaber until maybe the end of the season? So it's like the entire season they're getting ready, they're building their forces or whatever, uniting all Mandalorians around the galaxy, and then there's this like impending fight that they're kind of just delaying until it's necessary, until they like have enough people to invade Mandalore. I don't know, I think that would be kind
possible.
of hilarious.
I kind of think that they don't want to fight each other, but their sides might compel them to. It might bring back all these old rivalries, and then that's when it gets ugly. Yeah. I think that could happen. Yeah.
What if Bo-Katan becomes our villain?
That would be crazy.
That would be insane. It's also funny. Yeah. I feel like she was like, dude, Din, shut up. Like, it's because Moff Gideon was like taunting her. So he's like, shut up. We'll talk about this later. Like, maybe she was just like, here, just give it to me later. Just not in front of him.
I brought this up earlier, but there were only like 5 people in that room. They could easily make up. Like most of them don't even most of them don't even care about what happens in Mandalore. They could have just made up a story and just say, "Yeah, Bo, have it."
Din
She won it fair and square.
Din Djarin would have gladly said, "Yeah, she beat me up.
I yield. Please take this." Like, we'll tell him good story. Make it look good. Like. Anyway.
All right. So we've been talking about Bo-Katan in Mandalore a lot. There's a lot we can speculate about that. I want to talk about Ahsoka Tano now, looking for Grand Admiral Thrawn. How did you like the handling of Ahsoka Tano in live action form? I mean, she's such a beloved Star Wars character. She's my second favorite Star Wars character of all time.
I didn't know that. Wow.
I mean, dude, she's like awesome, man. I mean, just the fact that she has 2 lightsabers and the way she holds it in such an unconventional way, it's already awesome. But her connection to Anakin Skywalker, my number 1 favorite Star Wars character, is like, that connection. That connection is like so strong that I feel like you can't separate these characters anymore. For me, at least, when I see Anakin now, I see Ahsoka as well, and vice versa.
Awesome,
well, did you guys like Ahsoka Tano and Rosario Dawson and how she portrayed her?
Did you?
I'm asking you guys first.
Oh, okay. Well, she's like your second favorite character. I'm curious if you felt like she was handled well.
I would say yeah. For the most part, I was very satisfied. There were a couple things that were a little weird when it's transferred from animated to like her. I don't know what you call the hair piece that she wears, or is that a part of her head?
It's long and then it's short, right?
Yeah,
Or
and then
when it's short to long, now it's short.
and there's like a wrinkle in it that's like you don't see that in the animated shows, but then you see it in live action. It's like kind of. So, you know, some things look a little weird. You know, when it's it looks like almost like cosplay in a way. I think her eyes. I know that's not what Rosario Dawson looks like. So giving her the blue eyes that Ahsoka has in the show was I thought that looked a little off for me. And even her skin color. I mentioned it before when we first watched the episode. Like she kind of almost has like a. Like, you know, in tennis, like clay courts, like that's what her skin looked like. It's not Rosario Dawson's like natural skin. So I was wondering what the decision behind that was because I rewatched some of the Clone Wars and Rebels episodes, and I'm like yeah, I don't know why she looks like that in the. And I know it's not just my TV because I actually watched it on my iPad also, and on my iPad it looks like that as well. To me, at least, maybe to my eyes. Anyways, those are some of my like. Minor, very, very minor criticisms. Overall, like I'm very happy with Ahsoka. I thought, you know, the fighting was awesome. I thought Rosario Dawson was like a really good older Ahsoka.
Yeah. Yeah, there was definitely some moments where I had to kind of like translate in my brain that this is Ahsoka Tano. The most distracting being the wrinkles in her montrails. I was a little like, what? This looks like badly done foam core stuff. But then I think it was intended to show some age. I guess that's a way to show age for her. I don't know. But there were some moments though when Rosario Dawson was kind of just looking up or something. I was just like, that's totally Ahsoka. Like I felt like that was totally her. But that there were other moments where I was just like, not quite. But you know, as this is probably as good as they could do in translating a alien animated character into live action. And I didn't have the same reaction to the skin tone as you did, Mike. I thought it was fine, but it could be like the great color grading on our screens or something, or maybe it's like the blue dress, gold dress thing that everyone was arguing about a few years ago.
While you guys were talking about her montrals, I got curious and Googled up what Shakti looked like in the deleted scene for episode 3, and it looks like there were. She has like longer ones, but it seems like there are even like creases in certain parts of it. So I don't know if that's something they could really get rid of, but yeah. I just had to check up. I was like, because there's only one other live action Twi'lek not Twi'lek. How do you call them again?
Togrutas.
What was Togrutas, right?
Yeah.
And that was the first one that came to mind.
Oh yeah, there they are. Huh.
I was more invested in Ahsoka when I saw Rebels than I was in Clone Wars. I know that sounds a little blasphemous, but it just kind of interested me that Rebels was kind of where the shock of finding out that Vader is Anakin made it more interesting to me.
Oh, absolutely.
I have to say that one thing that did throw me off a little was, I don't know if optimistic or preppy is the right word to use, but there was definitely less of that in this portrayal by Rosario Dawson. But, you know, some time's gone by. She could have gotten a lot more bitter after Rebels. So I think if I keep that in mind and sort of make that excuse in my head, it doesn't bother me that much. And plus, it's cool. I mean, she has the physicality of a Jedi, Rosario Dawson. So
True.
Or I wouldn't use the word Jedi in this case, but, you know, lightsaber, Force user, I guess. Neutral, gray Jedi or something. But, yeah, so it didn't bother me that much. I thought if there's one thing Rosario Dawson is good at, it's portraying strength in a way. So yeah, those are my 2 cents on that.
So, she's looking for Grand Admiral Thrawn. Does this place the Mandalorian in between the climax and epilogue of Rebels in the timeline? Like, because, Rebels had like a climactic final battle where Ezra and Thrawn disappear, and then some time passes in the epilogue, and then we see Ahsoka Tano cloaked in all white, right? And then she's going with Sabine Wren to look for Ezra. So does this take place during that time where she's looking for Thrawn, or is this after where I don't know? Do you want to talk about?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I think I saw in an interview with Filoni after the Ahsoka episode that he did one of those like dodgy but not really dodgy answers where they asked, so did this take place before or after the epilogue in Rebels? And he kind of went like, it may have, you don't know. Yeah, like, so I think basically he was confirming without confirming that this is Ahsoka still looking for something, like, but then, why is she looking for Thrawn, right? Interesting.
Looking for
what
Thrawn,
the series is for.
I mean, looking for Thrawn means she finds Ezra Bridger, right? Who they're looking for, their main goal.
Yeah, but where's Sabine then, right? That's interesting. I don't know.
I'm wondering if maybe they split up, right? They split up, like I search this planet, you search that planet, kind of thing.
That's true.
It. Well, I mean, there is that interesting image of the concept art that they play at the end of each episode. There is one image of her in white robes communing with Grogu.
Oh, really?
Instead of what we got in the actual episode.
Awesome.
Yeah. If you look through the end credits again, there is that picture that was kind of raised an eyebrow, I guess, as to what the original intention of where this episode takes place is in relation to Rebels. Yeah.
Well, okay. I guess we'll see with the Ahsoka show. She's getting her own show, so nice. I don't think she comes back into the Mandalorian. I mean, what do you guys think?
I don't think so. I think it's unlikely, and even if she does, it won't be for long.
Yeah. I think they were saying that the Ahsoka show, the Rangers of the New Republic, and Mando will come together. So maybe that's the only time we'll see them back together. But I doubt she's a factor anymore.
That's interesting. Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah, it's just like a Filoni-verse type of thing.
They're ripping the playbook out of CW, man. Arrow and Flash, they all converged into these big event episodes.
And the Defenders, the Marvel Netflix stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure this is going to be a much bigger deal than not to knock on those shows or anything, but I mean it's Star Wars, so I think it should be really cool.
Yeah.
All right, so we've talked about Bo-Katan, Ahsoka Tano. Let's move on to Boba Fett. Were you guys fans of Boba Fett from the original movies? Are you happy with how he was handled in Mandalorian? I really have no say in this because I'm not really attached to him. Like, he's barely in the original movies. I never understood why people were so obsessed with him.
He looks cool, Mike. That's why you were obsessed with him. And plus, he screwed Han Solo, and that gives him major cred. I have to say, being sort of loving Star Wars since the age of 5, I also was one of those guys who didn't quite get what the obsession over Boba Fett was, other than the fact that he looked cool and he had like a toy that was dangerous at one point, with the little rocket that they were afraid would pop kids' eyes out and stuff. Yeah. So I think to answer your second question, I would say I liked him more actually in season 2 of Mandalorian, not just because of how they added to his character from the original trilogy, but they added the legacy of the character from the prequels. So now I can look at the prequels and the original trilogy and not feel like there's this huge disconnect in a way. It's finally come together, where we can see the results of those two trilogies in this, pretty badass performance from Tamara Morrison. So, he's just cool. I mean, now I can get it. Like, oh, he's super cool. Like, he doesn't take it from anyone, right? And he's pissed now. He's not like the guy who just stands there with a gun.
Yep.
Now he's out for blood.
It was really interesting to see Boba Fett in this show, because we now know through canon that he was a clone of Jango, and then we saw sometime in Clone Wars Minister Almec say Jango Fett was not a real Mandalorian, which kind of plays back into the big question I think we're going to get answered eventually, or maybe the big question of this whole show is, what is a Mandalorian? And we find out that Boba Fett and Jango Fett were essentially foundlings, just like Din Djarin, and they were adapted into Mandalorian culture. We didn't know that. We weren't sure about that. And so that's interesting. But then he's kind of like not really down to do the whole Mando thing with the like rules and the traditions and stuff. He's just kind of wearing the armor. He's like, I am Mandalorian, but I'm gonna kill everyone that stands in my way, as we see in that post-credit scene at the very end of the season. So I thought that was great. He was cool in the original movies. I thought his armor was awesome, but he kind of went down like a punk when a blind Han Solo hit his jetpack, and that was that. So, I was kind of like, this guy sucks. What's the whole...
The prequels kind of didn't do him any favors, because he was an annoying kid.
Dad,
right?
Tom Lee's here.
Like or like he says fire like in a weird way, and I was just like, you brought up. There's something I want to add to what you just said about what you said, whether the future of the Mandalorian is. They ask, what is a Mandalorian? Well, I would like to see is this question of what can a Mandalorian be, or what does a Mandalorian have to be for us to survive? I mean, Star Wars is fantasy, but it does make a lot of allusions to things that happen in real life. And if you look at like cultures, one recent, and I might get into some heavy stuff here, but one culture that comes to mind would be like what happened to the Yazidi people when ISIS went all out against them, in the last decade. To survive as a culture, they had to change a lot of their rules about. This might get a little heavy here, but a lot of women were taken as war brides by ISIS, and they were raped, and all these horrible things were done to them. And I was reading that, and I'm pretty sure I'm not wrong about this, but I might get some of the details wrong, that they had to, the people who led the Yazidis had to amend their rules about a female being a virgin before marriage, because they knew that this couldn't survive. Like, their culture couldn't survive unless they changed the rules around that. And I'm wondering if, in the future season of The Mandalorian, whether, because the Mandalorian culture has been decimated and they've been scattered, where they may have to change a lot of rules about what a Mandalorian is just to keep the culture alive. I think that would be that would generate some interesting storylines for me and philosophical questions that you can sort of see this season briefly dip into, but I wanna see them really push at that. So maybe because we're talking a lot about the next season probably not having as much fan service and how we'd like to see more of a focus on Mandalore, but I would love to see them push on that a little more, right? Like, is Boba Fett Mandalorian? Well, maybe he could be, right? So,
Oh, yeah. Thanks for sharing that. That's yeah, yeah, that is very deep. And
I didn't mean to get so heavy. I was just, because Star Wars does use some real world examples, right? I mean, the stormtroopers are Nazis, right? The entire rise is basically how the Third Reich went to power. It's all chronicled in the prequel trilogy. So I would think those would make for some really powerful storylines if they can.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Like I hope we get to see that stuff too. I think I feel like Filoni and Jon Favreau, they have a good sense of what the fans want, and I feel like that is what fans want now, like a more focused approach to Mandalorian, what is a Mandalorian, and lore and mythology behind it. There's just, I mean, they've kind of already planted seeds throughout these shows, but I think now is the time. Like, this is the namesake of the show, the Mandalorian. Like, let's claim that, that title.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on to the biggest thing.
Ooh, the big one. Man.
Let's talk about Luke Skywalker. I just want to first talk about the experience of watching that final episode of season 2. Let's talk beat by beat. I feel like it's one of those moments that you will remember where you were sitting, what you were feeling, like how your body responded physiologically. It was such a memorable moment. It was so. All right, so let's go beat by beat. Okay, they're trapped in that room. The dark troopers are trying to get in, and then you see an X-wing. All right, what are your first thoughts? What were you thinking?
Can we curse on this podcast?
Let's keep it PG-13.
Okay. Well, I think the big word was deaf word. Like, are they going? And then followed by are they going to do it? I can't, because if they do, that would be like insane. I mean, I know we had talked about this earlier about, okay, maybe we will see a Luke, because who else is a Jedi? And that's the important word, a Jedi during this timeline. As Ezra, Cal, Ahsoka, they know how to use a lightsaber, but they're not Jedis. So it really did sort of leave Luke in there, but it's I'm pretty sure I screamed, and I was thinking about the last time I felt like that watching anything Star Wars, and I think it may have been when Yoda pulled out his lightsaber in Episode 2, and the entire theater went to a collective scream, and I'm pretty sure that's how the fans felt like at that moment. But it's insane. It's a moment that we've been dreaming about seeing for many, 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 many years. Ever since you look at the Legends novels, you always, instead of seeing a washed up Luke Skywalker from The Last Jedi, we were, for decades, when the Legends expanded universe was the only expanded universe we had, Luke was like crazy powerful. Like, he was unchallenged. But we never saw that committed to film or television, and decades later we have it. So it's amazing to see. It really is. I mean, that was already a really strong episode before the X-Wing showed up. It was a really strong episode, and they just elevated it.
Did you guys already feel like something was going to happen? Because like it was already setting up the fact that like there's all these dark troopers on board, and it would be really hard to get through them. Like, I was already feeling they're setting up some kind of situation where they have no way out, and the only person who could save them is this Jedi. Even like when he was fighting Din Djarin was fighting the dark trooper, like it's so hard to beat one of them, if you don't have a lightsaber or something.
Fighting the Terminator. It's
right.
Kyle Reese fighting the Terminator.
Right.
1.
No, exactly.
Right.
That's a great analogy. So I was already getting the feeling that, like, okay, they're doing this because they want us to see how powerful a dark trooper is. And then when all of them start coming back in, I was already like, here we go, man. This is what we've been wanting, like, and talking about for weeks. Like, who is this Jedi going to be? And for sure, the Jedi is going to show up. Job, how did you react to that X-Wing?
I was like, I I started to black out, basically. I was like, that cannot be. That is an X-wing. That is an X-wing. And I didn't hear this because I was like flubbering in real time the first time I watched this. But Cara Dune says something really funny. She's like, great, one X-wing. We're saved.
Yeah.
And I was just like, but you don't know who's in that X-wing. And then, anyway, sorry. I'll try to contain myself, but I couldn't contain myself, man.
Yeah.
Like, when I was
like-
like, oh my gosh, like, they're going to do this. And then you see the hooded figure walking on the monitor. I was like, that looks like, that looks like Luke. You know, like the Leonardo DiCaprio meme where he's pointing at the TV. That was me. It was like, that's Luke. And then, yeah, when the green saber came in, I was like, it's Luke. I screamed. And then I tried to rationalize it because I'm just so used to being hurt as a Star Wars fan. I was like, dude, that's probably Ezra. That's probably Ezra because he has a green saber.
I know that feeling, Joe, but like that feeling of being hurt as a Star, we're used to it. We're used to being hurt
Yeah,
and disappointed.
I was like, they can't actually be doing this because we've had so many opportunities for Luke to be green lightsaber legend, but
Ignite the green.
Ignite the green. That's right. Shout out to Steele Saunders. But
Nate, yeah.
yeah, but like I couldn't believe it, and I was just thrilled. I was really thrilled. I will say though, I think that the sequels still I know people think that they crapped on Luke Skywalker, but I think that they were as true to his character as they could be. I really think that the way... Anyway, let's not go into that. Let's talk about this. This is great.
It's very easy to get into it. I just want to add to that. I agree with you. No, there.
All right, there we go.
Yeah.
I think what was so brilliant was, I mean, because that whole sequence is partly told from the perspective of everybody in that room, and they're finding out about this Jedi, this person coming in through the monitors, which are black and white. When you see the cloaked figure, like, I mean, I was thinking the same thing as you guys. Like, I'm like, dude, it has to be Luke. It has to be the X-wing. But at the same time, I'm always almost like, but Star Wars has disappointed me before as well.
Yes.
And you see the lightsaber swinging, and it's like you're getting so close to the fact that this could be Luke Skywalker, and it's like
I love how they did that. By the way,
yeah,
I do.
I love how it was black and white because it's like the ultimate confirmation is the color of the lightsaber, and we don't know it for a good like minute, right? Upon like the X-wing entering, like we don't have confirmation that it's Luke. But then there's that shot that shows the Dark Troopers on the bridge, and then the green lightsaber comes into the shot, and when we see it's green, oh my gosh, like that's when I completely lost it.
Any Star Wars fan would recognize that gloved hand and that lightsaber hilt.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That was really they even purposely show you that shot to tell you, yeah, this who you think it is who you think
this
it
is.
is.
Ezra Bridger. Ezra Bridger killed Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, cool. Here's the black glove with the lightsaber hilt. And so it's incredible. But then there was also a part of me that was nervous, like, what's his face gonna look like? So they've gone this far. So
one more thing I want to say, I went back and watched Anakin and Obi-Wan in Revenge of the Sith, and I thought those guys are they've probably done the best lightsaber technique, or they look the best at wielding a lightsaber in all of Star Wars. This Luke came close to that, I think. But yeah. I love that the choreography of it was still not quite smooth enough. There was a bit of that same choppy Luke, like just swinging wildly that we are used to in the movies. I think there was just enough of that to make it feel familiar, to make it feel like he's still not like a prime Jedi in terms of technique. He's still got a bit of that like farm boy hacky like wild swing thing going on. So I thought they handled that so well. At first I was like, he looks really awkward, and then I thought about it and I was like, Luke Skywalker always has looked awkward with a lightsaber. He just swings wildly, flails around, So anyway, all of that to say, I think they did so well by Luke. CGI face, it was fine, but I definitely saw Mark Hamill more than I didn't. It was not as distracting as Leia in Rogue One. So I felt like it was as good as they could do. And I was just really happy. It's Luke Skywalker. And Moff Gideon's face when he realized a Jedi was coming. And in fact, he probably knew which Jedi this was. He looked like he was soiling his pants in real time. Like, oh, it was great.
This is the Jedi that destroyed the first Death Star. So I who else could it be from Moff Gideon?
And defeated the Emperor.
One thing I wanted to add to that was a lot of people have been making comparisons with the Rogue One hallway scene where Vader slaughters all the rebels, with Luke destroying the dark troopers, because they roughly are the same amount of time and they have similar camera angles. But another scene, there's a part where Luke holds the saber behind him that reminded me a lot of when Anakin was slaughtering the rest of the separatists in episode 3. But I just wanted to say that just felt like there's a strong illusion there as well.
Nice catch. Yeah, now that you mention it, I can see that too.
Do you think that they will go back and update the CGI Mark Hamill face in a couple of years when the technology is better? I feel like the technology already exists. I just don't know that. I don't know. Like, so we all saw Blade Runner 2049, right? That movie by far had the best de-aging CGI face like we've ever seen. Because I remember seeing Rachel in that movie walk out, and it was the exact same actress as 1982's Blade Runner. And this is 2017.
That is the best one. Yes.
And, there's the whole issue with the uncanny valley, right? Where there's just something slightly off and you know that it's not their actual face. The textures are not right. It looks too smooth. But that, in Blade Runner 2049, there was no uncanny valley. Like, it looked like the actual actress just stepped into this 2017 movie exactly the same. And I'm just wondering why that is so hard to replicate, because this scene with Luke Skywalker, is the exact same type of scene. It's just like a few lines of dialogue, a look, and that's pretty much it, right? I'm wondering why it couldn't be better, because that technology clearly exists and it has been used. And secondly, I'm wondering if they'll go back and fix it in the future.
My first thought on that, being that I'm like a huge animation nut, so I love reading about how animation is done and CGI on that, is despite how good technology can be, animation is still a collection of creative choices. So I think if you probably had a better animator, they probably could make it work. Well, I don't mean to discredit anyone. I think what they did was remarkable, but I really do think it has a lot to do with that. I really truly believe that it's less of a function of technology and just more of a function of different choices. But I agree with what was said earlier about seeing more of Luke than not seeing him in that performance. So I'm satisfied with it. Yeah. Yeah.
As far as going back and improving it, remember in one of the episodes there was a guy in jeans, in the back, they caught a stagehand. They actually went and removed that, so it's actually gone.
Yeah.
So
I think they'll go back. Yeah.
Yeah.
They did the same with Game of Thrones, right?
Yeah.
Starbucks cup.
There's so many Starbucks cups in that show. All right. We could probably talk another hour about Luke Skywalker showing up in this show, but I think it's just the collective opinion of every Star Wars fan. That was completely, wholly satisfying. Complete catharsis. I think I was on a high for the last 2 days, every other hour I was watching that scene, just like replaying it, just with a huge smile on my face.
I was gonna say, be honest with me. How many times have you seen that scene?
Man, I would say probably. I think like 10 to 15. I would say.
Yeah, I would say probably the same with me as well.
Job, how about you?
Maybe 8.
8? Oh, come on, man.
Hey, I'm trying to. Okay, I'll catch up right after this. I'll throw it on.
All right. One final thing before we move on to the conclusion of our podcast. Grogu's fate. All right. Where does he go from here? Will he be a part of Luke's Jedi Academy? Do you guys think we see him again? Do you think we will see Luke Skywalker again?
Yes, and yes. To a point.
Really?
To a point on each answer. Yeah, I do think we will see Luke again, but probably not in a large role. And I think we will definitely see Grogu again because Din said he promised that he would see him again. And I want to say more about what I think his place in Luke's Jedi Academy is, but I think that might go more into your next topic, which is the future of Star Wars.
I see.
Yeah, I don't know that we'll see Luke again in Mandalorian, but I think we're gonna see him more. I thought, man, maybe they won't do Luke. Maybe Star Wars and Lucasfilm is done with exploring the Skywalker saga, but no, they brought him back. So at this point, anything's on the table. I think maybe they'll do maybe a limited series. I bet they'll bring in Sebastian Stan eventually. I think it makes too much sense not to. And they can't do a CGI main character unless they want to. I don't know. But yeah, I think we'll see Grogu again as well. I still don't think his ultimate destiny will be as a Jedi. I think that he'll get some training, but then I think he'll eventually come back to Mandalorian, to Din Djarin's story in some way. I think.
Yeah, I think all the kids will love it, and the merchandising people. We can't forget about Baby Yoda.
Yeah. They're not going to let go of, those merchandise.
Do you think we'll get him
so easily?
Do you think he'll come back next season, or
he's going to come back with a lightsaber?
Yeah, that's what I
lightsaber.
All right. I guess to wrap this up, I kind of want to just talk about the future of Star Wars on Disney Plus, because obviously this season and also the investor call this past week, a lot of stuff was announced, right?
Yep.
They're going full on into Disney Plus with all these new shows. They announced one new movie, Rogue Squadron. And just thinking about the future of Star Wars and what the saga needs at this point, for me, in terms of like, I guess, just someone who loves movies and storytelling. I said in a previous podcast episode, I forget which one, like a year or two ago, but I said that I really wanted Luke Skywalker or Han Solo to show up at some point in The Mandalorian. And at the time when I said it, I felt it felt very far-fetched but plausible because it did take place during that era. Last night, or not this last episode of season 2, at the very least in the TV realm, it confirms to me that Lucasfilm listens to the fans. All right, they cast Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka Tano, and they brought Luke Skywalker back. Like, they know what the fans want, and they've served us. They served us well this season.
Yes.
So let me propose this for a future Disney Plus show or limited series that would end all shows. A Ben Solo show. Ben Solo, okay? We still have Mark Hamill. We still have Harrison Ford. We have Adam Driver. Let's please just seize the moment and take advantage of the fact that we still have these actors. In the flashbacks in episode 8, it's a middle-aged Mark Hamill and a slightly younger Adam Driver. They can still portray those characters at the same moment in time, right, as in episode 8. in this show, what I would love to see show us how a troubled Ben Solo was, how troubled he was, as a person, and how he struggled with the dark side and the light. Show us his discovery of the fact that his grandfather was Darth Vader. Show us how he struggled with his father Han, and show us how Luke took Ben to train him in his new Jedi Academy. Show us how the Luke Skywalker that we knew from the original trilogy became the Luke Skywalker in the sequel trilogy. Episodes 8 and 9, they get a lot of flack for what it did to these legacy characters. I feel like it reminds me a lot of the flack that the prequel trilogy got when it was first released. But, Clone Wars and Rebels, we talked about this already, but it retroactively improved the prequels and made them more palatable for fans. Now people defend the prequels, right? I never thought that was possible. So I feel like a Ben Solo show could do the same for episodes 8 and 9. And I feel like we need it badly, especially because the jump from Return of the Jedi to The Last Jedi is just so stark. I think we need something in the middle to smooth this over. And the reason why I'm advocating for a live action show or limited series is because no one's going to watch, very few people are going to watch a cartoon, right? More like my coworkers who've never seen Star Wars before, they're watching The Mandalorian because it's a live action show. There's no chance in a million years they would watch a cartoon. You know what I mean? So yeah. I feel like it has to be a live action show, especially with these actors. We never got to see Mark Hamill and Harrison Ford again on screen. This is a chance to give us that moment, to give us some adventures, beginning adventures with Luke and Han and Ben and Chewie and R2. Like, that would be so freaking awesome. Anyways, I don't know. I want to know what your guys' thoughts are as like longer Star Wars fans than me. Like, is this a dumb idea? Do you think we need a show like this, or do you think we need to move on from the Skywalker family?
No, you're still holding on.
Let go.
Let go. I want to see that stuff explored. I just think it's a really tightrope to walk. I think there are a lot of things that could go wrong. But I do feel like there's this gap there that I think people would like to see more fleshed out. Because I think going from Return to Jedi to The Force Awakens the sequel trilogy as a whole, it does feel like there were too many jumps made. So you couldn't quite totally relate to why certain characters had certain motivations. As good as Adam Driver was, there's still something very bratty about that character. So I would like to see him more. I know the comics have tried to do this, particularly with what happens around Luke's new Jedi temple. But I like you said, some people aren't gonna watch the cartoons, so I don't think some people are going to read the comics. So it'd be nice to see that in live action. I just think that there's a lot that could also go wrong with a show like that.
Right. I think you would need someone like Filoni and Favreau to take the helm. I would trust it in their hands. Sorry, Joe, go on.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. I think there will be too many people going like, Disney's erasing the sequels with a show like that. And I don't think Lucasfilm wants to go there.
What do you mean? What do you mean they're erasing? What do you mean they're going to erase the sequels with that?
Well, like, I think too many people were like, they are correcting the sequels, or like they're fixing it. Those sequels are no longer canon. That kind of thing. There's just too much discourse about how Disney should erase or like fix the sequels, when I think Lucasfilm, for all the warts that the episode 7, 8, and 9 might have,
you mean 8
I think
and
they
9?
want to set 8 and 9, sure. I love them all personally, but the public perception is not quite the same as someone like me, and so I think Disney wants to stand by what they've made, and I don't know that they want to go there in terms of a live action show with Mark Hamill again, with Han Solo again. I'm Han Solo again with Harrison Ford again. That's why I think that they will explore that time period, but I think they will go into animation with it, just as they did with Clone Wars. I think creatively they could do a lot more in animation than live action. They don't have to worry about de-aging. They don't have to worry about getting expensive actors back in the fold. They can get voiceover actors who are close enough,
They technically don't have to
Harrison.
de-age anyone for this show because, I mean, they didn't de-age Mark Hamill in The Last Jedi in those flashbacks, right? I mean, he still looked like Mark Hamill now, just with like a beard and brown hair. So Harrison Ford, I would imagine, would kind of be, maybe they dye his hair or something, but he's still like an older guy.
He would just be hard to
just
get back in general, Harrison Ford.
Yeah. Harrison
So,
Ford's
I mean-
so happy he got killed, He was so happy he died.
Hey,
was
but you know what? He came back for episode 9. So that's the thing. I'm like, these guys, they say that they're done and they want to be done, but it's like freaking Godfather, right? Like, I try to get out and they're pulling me back in or whatever.
Well, they probably paid him like a lot of money, just like they paid Marlon Brando a lot of money just to be in a few minutes of the first Superman movie or something. That's what I'm guessing happened with Rise of Skywalker.
Right. So I'm saying, so what I think is, Harrison Ford, you don't have to use him the entire show, right? Or like every single episode. I think he would probably be a character who starts off the show, and then the rest of the show is about Mark Hamill and Adam Driver in the Jedi Academy.
I think I would love it. I would love it, Mike. I actually am not against it. I think in a vacuum,
you're just being realistic.
Yeah, it would be the greatest thing ever, man. Like in the vacuum, but we don't live in a vacuum. We live in a Twilight world, So.
Hey, but you know what? Luke Skywalker just came back and thrashed a bunch of. We never thought, we thought that's it. Last Jedi Luke is the last thing that we're going to see of Luke Skywalker, and that's why I feel like they prove us wrong, and they're going to, they try to give us, I think, what we want. Anyways, just a thought. Do you guys have any other thoughts before we wrap up the episode?
That was the best 45 minutes of Star Wars we got in a long time. Not that I was unholy unhappy about the stuff that's come out since the prequels. It's just nothing made me feel that level of joy.
Yeah.
And especially in the current times that we have, I'm just happy that there are storytellers who could give us those feelings.
Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, actually, that's a great point, Albert. And I was mentioning to Mike earlier that was the closest thing to a post movie event that we've felt in a long time, in terms of like everyone's buzzing about the same thing. You get like your friends going like, "Hey, did you watch it?" Like that's like Avengers. That's The Force Awakens. That's Batman versus Superman.
Oh my
Hard to
gosh.
say.
That was
Like it was
completely-
an event.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
so
really
here's the
great,
thing.
and I'm grateful for that.
I don't want to get on a soapbox or anything, but a lot is being made right now about theaters versus streaming, and I really wish I was able to see it with you guys. I was freaking out by myself on my couch. Like, as fun as that was, if we were together, dude, it would have been even like magnitudes better than it was already great, but then magnitudes better if we could just be together in the same room and watching it together. I know partly we didn't do that because of COVID, but I think there's just some things in a movie theater that you can't achieve like when you're streaming online, and that would have been a crazy thing to see in theaters.
Yes.
I was thinking about that, and that's why I thought about the Yoda lightsaber scene in Attack of the Clones, because that was the only time I've been in the theater where there was a collective scream and you couldn't even hear anything while Yoda fought with Dooku. at all. I remember my friend Eric. You guys met him. He was kicking the metal bar in front of him because we were in the very first row, like without any sort of regard for his health or anything. But you can only have that in the theater. I wanted to get a little bit. I know we're out of time almost, but I guess a question I kind of want to see, maybe a lightning round of thoughts about is, do you think a Star Wars movie could be a downgrade from a Star Wars TV series now?
Wow, that is a question.
It's hard to say, right? It's hard to say because we don't even know what the roadmap of movies really looks like besides Patty Jenkins's and Taika Waititi's, and we really don't know what either of those is going to be about. So maybe, like, if let's say the Disney Plus world stays in the like Favreau Filoni world, and the films continue to be made kind of like in a Hollywood style, like with big time filmmakers who kind of do their own thing, we could get something like that where it feels like these movies feel disconnected, but the Disney Plus stuff, man, that is where real Star Wars is. And we're already seeing that, right? Like, some people are saying Mandalorian's the only true Star Wars in this era or something, So maybe. It's tough to say.
Yeah.
Strange new world.
I don't know if I can comment on that right now. That's a really good question. I'd have to really think about it. As just like a purist, someone who loves cinema, I feel like my gut response is no. Like, you cannot replace the cinematic experience. But I think in terms of Star Wars, yeah, I think Job is absolutely right. Like, there's an argument to be made that you can explore so much more of Star Wars in long form storytelling than you can in like a 2.5 hour movie.
Yeah, I agree with all aspects of what you guys said. There's nothing screams cinema experience than seeing that scroll come down the screen in the beginning of a Star Wars movie with everybody. But at the same time, the lore of Star Wars there's all this history and all these connections. It's gotten too long, I think, to be contained in a 2.5 hour format.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's definitely something that I think we should all think about in terms of the future of Star Wars. Yeah, that's a possibility. Thank you all for tuning in to this episode of the Week in Foolish Movie Podcast. We hope you enjoyed our discussion. We hope you enjoyed The Mandalorian Season 2 as much as we did. Please leave a comment or like if you enjoyed this episode. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.